Nature is pre-mind. It hasn't arrived at mind. You are post-mind, but you meet in the state of no mind. It has similarities. Nature is one with itself and with the totality. Every animal is one with itself. It doesn't separate itself out of the totality. It says, me. Maybe there may be a few exceptional mad dogs that lived for too long with humans and go to are taken to the hairdresser. And when they walk around, you can see there's the beginnings of an ego there. And ego, of course, means having a self-image, me, like a phantom self walking next to it's me. And then you're aware of others, how they react to me. And that becomes incorporated into me. I want others to think well of me, to admire me, to feel that I'm better than they are, if possible. With a continuous fear that I may be less than they. But nature, when it's left alone, is free of that. And even most pets are still free of it, miraculously, or they've lived with humans for so long, miraculously, they are still sane. And they are what keeps many humans sane. If they didn't have their pet, it's their only access to being. Because anything else, their mind is in charge. They meet other humans, their mind is in charge. For the rest of their life, they're burdened by themselves. And for some humans, their only area of freedom is when the pet comes and they go, they don't have to, they're not playing a game with their pets, they're just themselves. Because they know that the pet accepts them, the dog does not criticize you, the dog accepts you, accepts the most insane master. I heard a little saying, God, please make me into the person my dog thinks I am. And of course the dog doesn't think, it just, if it thought, it would be the beginning of a problem. So everything in nature, the flower, which Jesus, I'm sure, said many, many times, he said, look at the flowers. They're not concerned about tomorrow. They are not making effort. They are not stressed. They're not worried. They live in the now, unfold in the now, and life supports them beautifully. And why do you live the way you live? So you're mad. Learn from the flowers how to live. And he said, look, although in the Bible it says, consider the lilies, I'm sure what he said is, look. And then something transmits itself, and that is the state of being aligned at one with life, the integrity that is there in nature, in an animal and in a plant, and even in a mineral. Although mineral seems more distant from humans. But humans have all that within themselves still. The integrity, that word means being one with one. Being rooted in being. Not existing as a separate, fearful entity that feels disconnected from the universe, and that the egoic self, that's me and there's the rest of the universe. And of course then the universe is a fearful place because it's so much bigger than me, although I'm trying to get bigger. So nature teaches to be. Now when you enter being, it has an added dimension of intensity and depth because you've been through thought. For thousands of years you've gone through the consciousness level we call thought. You then go beyond thought and you touch being again, but this time you know it. Before you lost being, you never really lost it, but it became obscured. Before you lost being, to be at one with being was like every animal and every plant. It's natural. There's nothing else. So you didn't really know that you were in paradise, because there was nothing else. The state of oneness was natural. And then it got obscured, or lost you could call it. And then suddenly you come to the end of this evolutionary cycle and you touch being again. And this time you know it, the depths of it. Consciously you enter being. And yet nature can teach you being. Not that you become the same as a vegetable. There's nothing wrong with vegetables, but it's not the destiny of humans to become vegetable again. The vegetable is beautiful, more closer to the source than an ordinary human. Has no problem with dying. And no problem with living. The only unhappiness on the planet is the human mind. Yes, the human mind causes suffering to other life forms, pain, that is right. But the human mind is the only source of unhappiness on the planet. Nature exists in the state of unity. And so nature teaches us, not through any concept, simply by placing awareness on anything natural, you become still. Animal, plant, clouds, flowing water, or still water, or the sea. Whatever it is, even a rock, a stone, a pebble, but you have to give it a chance to teach you stillness by allowing it to be without interfering with its being through conceptualization, by looking or listening completely. Then also the separation between you and it, which was created by excessive thinking, disappears. And there's a sense of connectedness or oneness with whatever you perceive. So that's what nature teaches you. And then you meet. And you add something to nature when you become conscious of it. Something completes itself, because you become aware of enormous beauty and aliveness and sacredness that is there even in a blade of grass. And so through you, because ultimately you are not separate from anything, everything is connected to everything else, through you, nature becomes aware of its own sacredness and beauty. So when you look at a tree and really look, you add something to the being of the tree, and that's awareness of itself. And that's the function that humans have on the planet as they become conscious. Through humans, nature becomes conscious of itself. It's been waiting for you. And finally, the first humans, fully developed humans, arrive. And they're only just arriving. One could almost say humans have been in embryonic state for a long time. And the birth is really of true humanity does not happen until there's the arising of presence. There are still a few humans left on the planet who are not yet lost in mind and ego. And just a few. In a few very distant cultures that have not been destroyed by so-called civilization. But their destiny also, I believe, will have to travel the same way as you, through the thinking mind. So it's the destiny of all humans to lose it and then regain it. Now you are lucky because you all belong to those who lost it, and me too. I had to lose it, lose myself to find myself and know myself for the first time. We spoke of walking. We spoke of being with what looks like unremarkable nature and yet is very remarkable. Let it teach you. And related to that is our practice this weekend, other simple activities that you do here that usually would be a means to an end. That you would washing your hands, lifting a glass of water to your mouth and putting it back. There can be quality, beauty and consciousness in that. It means that it's not a means to an end. And during that space, while the glass traveled from the table to your mouth, it's a space of no thought, just clear awareness. So the background to that action is stillness, alert stillness. So that action happens against that background of alert stillness. Just as the perception of the tree or the little flower happens when you truly look against a background of alert stillness. That means there is a peace in the background to what happens in your life, to what you see and what you do. Now we start with very simple things that are not challenging, that are actually helpful. Nature and little actions. Then we come to things that are more challenging. Let's see that. But first we'll stay with that non-challenging things in life. Simple actions, not making them to a means to an end. Lifting something, putting something from here to there, wiping the top of the table against a background of stillness. That means peace flows into what you do. So you have to see putting on your shoes, tying shoelaces if you have shoelaces. And again, being fully there, not a means to an end. The moment of having your shoes finally on your feet is not more important than the moment of putting your shoes on. That's the delusion, that the next moment is more important. There's no difference whether I have my shoes on or off. It doesn't improve my life to have the shoes on. Another thing is eating. Eating is a primordial activity that even very early life forms engage in. Even life forms that have relatively undeveloped organs of perception, they're eating already. And sometimes it's the only thing they are interested in. And so many human beings become completely unconscious when they start eating. Even you can have, I've seen intellectuals at universities, professors, talking the most complex concepts, and then they start eating and they're and then they finish, and then, okay, now let's get back to the problem of existentialist analysis of Immanuel Kant and his theory of the critique of pure reason. So to bring consciousness into that primordial activity, and sometimes to just be conscious of chewing food and swallowing food, and again, not wanting to arrive at the end, because that's another needing. Some people have a so-called problem with eating. It's not really a problem, but they eat more than they need to eat. And that's usually it's the egoic mind needing more, and that can translate itself into taking in more food. It could be other things, often it's other things. If you have a problem with eating, so-called problems, many humans have that these days, it's helpful to, when the impulse to eat comes in between meals, to simply notice it. Now, at what stage you catch the impulse, and it's not only eating, this would apply to any so-called addiction, smoking. At some point, the impulse comes, and it's an unconscious movement. I need to take something in. It's with smoking, or drink. And the impulse comes to, there's a lack here, I need. And you have to observe it on an energetic level inside yourself. Don't detach yourself by some thought. Really feel the grasping of it, the neediness of it. I need. And now, how soon you catch that impulse, no matter what it is, depends how alert you are at that moment, how present you are, because the impulse very quickly can pull you into unconsciousness. And some people wake up after they've taken the big sandwich out of the fridge and eaten it, and then they realize they've just been eating a big sandwich. And while they were eating the big sandwich, the mind was somewhere completely different. And then as you become more present, you can catch yourself the moment your hand is in the fridge. And then you feel the grasping, the impulse. And then you stop for a moment and observe that. You don't stop and think, oh, I shouldn't be eating another sandwich. No, that doesn't work. You simply observe the feeling behind it, the lack, the sense of needing to be filled that is behind it. And that needing to be filled is not a physical thing. It may appear as a physical thing, but it is a psychological thing, and it's created by the ego, which is always in a state of not enough. And others may be running after other things, and for some people it becomes food. It may be other things for them also. They need more of something to fill that which feels unfulfilled. So I need to more. And then you have the hand in the fridge, and then for a moment you can stop and feel it. Observe what is behind that impulse. Oh, isn't that interesting? And you spend a minute or two being present with that. And after that, you may still eat it, or you may not. Sometimes it's gone. The desire is gone because you've become conscious. At other times, maybe it's still there and you still can't stop yourself. But you have brought presence to it. And each time you bring presence to something that before was unconscious, presence grows. Even if on an external level you might say, I did not succeed. I did have to. And the cigarette comes the same. If the need to smoke comes, for a moment you observe the wanting behind it and what the wanting behind it feels like. And how it's almost something that lives in you, that wants you to grasp at this now. There's a gap. And you bring presence to that. And then whether you smoke or not, or eat or don't, really is secondary. The success is really determined by whether you can be the witness of your inner state at that moment. That's all. What you then do externally is always secondary. You cannot not change if you bring presence to whatever is there. So you don't need to work on the external level as achieving particular kind of behavior. It's enough to observe what is here now. And so for some people that is the beginning of their spiritual path. The beginning of their spiritual path can be an addiction. Food, drink, drug. And then creating suffering in their lives because the body becomes ill. And then forces them into awareness. So any such thing in your life is also helpful. It's not a hindrance anymore. And it's included in what is now. What can you do? That's what you feel at this moment. It is. It's included in your bringing a yes to this moment. An enormous longing for another drink. That's what is. And you watch. And there's suddenly another dimension to it. You watch. presence. The formless consciousness, and there's the form, that impulse, that desire, that thought, that emotion, and the space around it. That's who you are. So the more you accept that it's there, the more the space around it grows. So to speak, spaciousness comes into your life. So our 3 practices, it's more than that, we'll just give it a little structure. Our 3 practices, the walking. There's a teacher whose name I can never pronounce, Thich Nhat Hanh, or something like that. There's this beautiful saying, the miraculous things to take one peaceful step. Peace in every step. That's truly, that is not what we imagine miracles are. This is the miraculous thing of bringing peace into this step that I'm taking this moment. There's never anything else. So that's what we work with. Nature and simple actions, including eating. Handling things. Getting dressed, undress. Not a means to an end in itself. The next moment is not more significant than this one. This one is the only one that is. And so you become a field of presence, which is peace, and that flows into what you do, and that does something to how you do it, to your actions. The way you walk, the way you put something from here to there, something flows into the doing that is a different energy from the energy that flows into it when you reduce it to a means to an end. The doing becomes more intelligent.